WX Live webinar number 25 on Friday, June 1st at 6 a.m.
Morning.
Time. Yeah. We got Rob Berry, who's going to do a two-part series for us using WM17 to do iOS development. Don't forget, Tim wants to talk about WX DevCon 2012. Just call him up. He'll talk to you. But there's information, or you could go to the website wxdevcon.com. So with that, we're going to just open it up here for Rob, who's so generously sharing what he's painfully gone through in the last year or two. And anytime you're ready, Rob, it's all yours. Did we lose Rob? Rob, we can't hear you. So you have anything to say, Tim, about the... Oh, let's see if we can give him the mic. Tim.
Huh?
Okay, Tim or Andy, you have anything to say about the webinar? I mean,
well, I think it's fantastic myself. The idea of being able to use the same code base to for either one is that's
awesome.
great.
Okay.
Awesome. Rob is back.
Yeah.
Rob.
For some reason, when I started my share, it muted my mic. So okay. I'm back.
Okay, you're live and kicking now.
All right.
Yeah, you're live back.
All right. So, good morning, everyone.
Welcome again, yes. Rob Berry.
Okay. You have to do a little editing there, huh?
No, we just let it go. No big deal.
Okay. Well, I know a lot of people are interested in Apple development, and with the advent of the ability to do iOS development in WinMobile 17, I dove into it to try to get an understanding of how PCSoft did their integration. And before we get into that, though, I want to let everybody know that in order to develop for Apple, you must become an Apple developer. They have a ton of tools on their site. We're going to log in. I'm just going to give you an idea of what help they give you and what kind of tools they give you to develop. Because what will happen is, even though WinMobile 17 gives you a lot of ability to develop an app, it is still in its infancy, and you may find you need to put a lot of your own Objective-C code in order to get some of the nicer features, such as iAd or push notifications. So when you get your developer account, you go to developer.apple.com. Let me just log in here. Depending on what developer setup you have access to various centers. I'm only in iOS, so we're just going to click there. Now, first page is always your developer resources. When they have a beta, you'll see the double tabs. It'll show the current iOS, and then when they release a beta, you'll see the beta tab, so you can bounce between the two. But for right now, we're just dealing with iOS 5. The downloads are down here. This allows you to download Xcode with the most recent SDKs.
And realize that Xcode is the IDE. It's not the language.
Yeah, a lot of people confuse that.
People get confused.
Objective-C is the language. Xcode is the environment in which you use the language. You have all your different firmwares, your Apple TV. Everything's accessible to you. The other nice thing is they have getting started videos. So for people who just diving into this and you want to learn how to do this, or even if you do know how to program in Objective-C and you're like, well, for example, how to do in-app purchases. They have a video on how to do that. And there's quite an extensive amount of them. You know, it's not a ton, but it's enough. I have another resource that has a lot more that helps. The developer library. This is what comes in very handy when you're trying to get sample code. For example, if you want to know how to, let's pick something interesting here. I'll just do a simple URL connection. You can download the actual code so you can compile it and run it in Xcode. Or what I do sometimes is if I just need a sample snippet, I just want to see how do you use something, I just bounce through the actual just text of different code. Now you'll see there's .h's and .m's. .h's are basically your declarations of your variables and outlets and such. And .m's are
.h is like
the header,
the word
header
header,
file,
right?
yes.
It's yeah,
Just
header.
like in
Okay.
C, the C header. The .m's are your implementation files. That's where you actually put your classes and all your code. It takes a little getting used to, but once you start doing it, you realize it makes it a little bit more organized and easier to use. So here they have all the different code, and you can just find what you're looking for. And then if you really want it, like that's perfect, you can cut and paste, and you're good to go. The other nice thing is your references, your class references. One of the big ones you use is the UI kit. That's the user interface. And at this point, you can get whatever you want to touch on. Let's say you want to use the accelerometer in it. That's what tells the phone where, when you tilt it and move it around. And it tells you everything. It's an NS object and stuff. But then down here, it tells you the getter. But then you can go to the methods. And then it also will tell you sample code. This is not as detailed as some of the other ones. Let me go back to one that's a little more detailed. Here you go, UI button. These are all the configurations. The title for state. You can, so depending on whether it's pushed, what is, you can set all this stuff up, but it's all right here. And it just makes it a lot easier to figure out, okay, if I've got a button. Well, the other day I was doing something on the navigation bar in one of my other apps, and I wanted to put the title, I wanted to change the title depending on what menu options were picked. And I went in here, found out what the setting is to change the title, and within seconds I had that fixed. So they're very detailed and very well documented on their developer side. So although it may seem like a daunting task to learn the language, this is a very good resource to figure out what is going on. And now then you have your frameworks. Anything that's on the iPhone and iPad or iPods it uses the Cocoa Touch because everything is touch related. And you'll notice that they have the game kit, the iAds, the map kit is all there. Because I'm in the iOS developer portal, I'm not seeing really any frameworks for programming on the Mac or Safari. There's some core ones, but this is where you can find out. If you want to put iAd, which is something that we'll show later, here's all the documents on best practices and etc. on how to implement iAd.
Well, hey,
Yes.
Rob, if I just do a simple business app, do I use any of these iframes? Is it the UI
Well,
kit or what is
the
the
UI kit is
standard?
pretty
I
much
mean, if I
general
don't.
for everything. But let's just say you're doing a
Uh-huh.
business app, okay, and you say you want, let's say you're doing a delivery service, and you want to be able to show the person who's doing the delivery where the location is. Well, you go to the map kit, and this will show you how, breadcrumbs if you want, or whatever, in order to show them where the address is in a map. I
Mhm.
use the map. I use a derivative of the map kit in one of my apps to show where the restaurant is and where you are in relation to the restaurant and how to get to the restaurant. Um, yeah,
Directions,
the thing when
basically.
you're dealing with this is you have to start thinking out of the box. When you're starting to do an app, your tendency is I want to present my data. But when you're dealing with Apple, they don't always want you just to present the data. They want you to make the data fun. If you want to make it for a better term. When I first my first app that I did, which was with the iRestaurant host, all I did was advertise the menu items, and I was rejected. And their response was because it was strictly an advertising app. It had no interaction from the user. So I went and added Facebook integration. So that way, whenever you say you went to the restaurant, you had a meal, and you wanted to share that meal with all your Facebook friends, you just push the Facebook button, and it will publish on Facebook your meal and where you had it. Then it got approved. Um, so when you're dealing with this, there's let's back up a little bit. When you're dealing with an app on the store, there's the apps that you see that are used for for sale. But if you're a business, and let's just say you develop a product that's strictly for your in-house, you can do what's called an ad hoc distribution. Ad hoc basically means you've registered all of the devices into your developer's account, and then when you build that application, it has embedded in it the approved devices that it can be installed on. So you can develop an app that's strictly used in-house, and you're good to go. You don't have to worry about it. It's limited, I believe, to 99 people, but in reality, if you find you need more than that, I'm sure there's a way to create another account or whatever, and you can add to it. But and if you've got 100 people, you really want to have to collect everybody's things. At that point, you put it on the website for $500 on the Apple Store. Nobody's going to buy it, and then you can get coupons. You can create um, to get it for free. So it's not there's ways around things. But when you're dealing with business, you just you have to start having fun with it and thinking, all right, how can I make this a little bit more interactive? And you might find more functionality, being able to say, you know, adding a message center in it, um, push notifications, being able to say, all right, I got to send a message to all of my delivery guys out there. You can send them. Push notifications is very flexible. It may seem like it's a one to all, but it's not. If you develop your app in such a way that you are collecting the data, such as the person's name or email address, as well as their UID, which is the ID of the actual device, you can direct push notifications to specific people. It's all done through the database and through the scripts, which we can see about getting into later. It's a little more detailed to get to than right now. Um, so that's, well, let me go back to the center here. All right. And as you can see, they've got, that's that's for making iAds. There's more coding how-tos. If you want to know how to do networking or data management using core data. Um,
iAds are like advertisement, by the way. Rob was showing me that was pretty cool.
iAds is a program that Apple has that when you um, become a developer, you can register for iAds. If you use an iAd in your application and somebody clicks that ad, and I'm still learning it, I believe they have to click the ad and that's it. In other words, they have to view the ad. You get some money. You get something. I don't know exactly how much. I haven't read into how much, but I have an app that I'm working on now that I'm going to be using iAds, so I have to learn a little more about how much I'm going to make for it. But it's going to be a free app, and that's just how I'm going to hopefully make some money. I don't know how much, but um, my other app that I did for the restaurants, I actually created my own advertising system so that the restaurateur can put ads on his menus and he can sell advertising space to offset the cost of the app. So in essence, the app should be able to cost the restaurateur nothing per month because he'll be able to sell advertising to the various local businesses. In the beer section, if the beer is sold at the local liquor store, you can go to the liquor store and say, hey, I'll tell everybody the beer that I'm selling in my restaurant is also available at your store for $15 a month. And they can work an agreement out there. All right, so that's the resources on how, on what you can get to. And as you can see, there is a ton. It I haven't even scratched the surface, and I've looked at a lot of some of this stuff, and it's fun looking at because you're like, oh, how can I implement that in my app? So that's why you have to kind of think out of the box. You have your basic app, but now you have to figure out how to make it better. And then they have the developer forums if you have questions, just like any other forum. Um, I I'll just, we're going to go into this a little more detail in the second session, but I'll just, because we're here, I'm going to show the developers portal. This is the location where you do that's my company there. This is where you get all your certificates. Your development certificate, you really just need one of them to start off with. When you distribute your app, you create a distribution app, this certificate.
Do you have to pay for
No,
each one,
no,
or is
it's
it part of your
$99 and you can do
$99?
as many as you want.
Cool.
Your devices. This is where, if you were going to do ad hoc or whatever, you can add devices in. That's why they have an upload. You can put it in a file and just upload the whole set. I think it's standard CSV. I'm not sure exactly what information is needed, but each app you develop. Now, like I said, we'll go into this again in the second part, but you create your app ID, and as you can see, it's like reverse. It's uh,
It's a namespace
yeah,
type of
it's
deal.
a namespace that you create for your app. And this is where you can say, all right, we're going to use push notifications. Are we going to do in-app purchasing? Game Center, iCloud. The certificate is generated based upon what you have enabled. And then you download the certificate and install it into your, what they call your keychain for on the Apple. Xcode then will allow you to develop using those functions. Provisioning is where there's a lot of steps when it comes to this stuff, and it's very detailed. And if everybody starts really developing, we can do another webinar on exactly how to go about creating all these certificates and distribution systems. See, here's the ad hoc. It tells you how to do it. You just need to do it a few times in order to get the hang of it.
Yeah, the nice thing is you're giving us the lay
Yeah,
of the land, so at least we have a fighting
it looks
chance.
daunting and it looks like, oh, geez, do I really want to bother? But once you've done it, it comes pretty quick. It's not a really, I just had to redo one of my certificates, and it took me all of maybe 3 minutes to redo it and install it. It's not hard. Once you're done, I keep going back too far, and you've developed your app and you're ready to publish it, you go to what's called iTunes Connect. This is where you actually publish your application. They give you a lot of tools here. You can do sales and trends. You can see how much my first app hasn't been officially released yet. The restaurant's still working on it, so I don't have much data here, but you can see your full trend on your free apps, paid apps, your in-app purchases. It's just gonna take a minute. You can see I've got, the other day one person downloaded it. So it's not fully released yet. This is where you set up if you want to receive iAds. You set up your different contracts based on your, let's see. All right, here's your, when you create your app, like I said, we'll do this again in the second half. I'm just going to whip through it real quick. Once you create your app, you can set up, this is where you edit your metadata for all your information, description. You put in your little pictures of the screen. You need at least 4. You can do more, but they want at least 4 of them. Promo codes are the codes I was talking about, like if you wanted to give your app to somebody. So if you did have an in-house purchase or an in-house app and you wanted to give it away, you can create promo codes. There is a limit on those too, but I'm sure anything is, you can do anything with Apple. You just have to call them and ask how to do something. I've not had the need to, so I haven't called them. You can get all kinds of information from the system. You know, details in your binary. See, these are my certificate, my entitlements, they call them once you push them. There's just a ton of information. And that's just the overview of that. So let's have a look at 17 here. Just click over to my, all right, everybody, you see my Windows 17 here?
Yeah.
All right.
Yep, we see it. The juicy part.
Okay. To create a project in iOS, it's just like you normally do. Give it a name. Just going to leave it as defaults here for now. What did that say? Hold on. I think I said yes to something I shouldn't have. It's cool. I think I did this once before, so I just want to get rid of that. Okay. Your normal, that's some of the normal stuff that you get. Now, here's where you choose this. Now, it's going to ask you if you want to develop for iPad and iPhone. Apple.
You can make it bigger. You can make it bigger, by the way, if
Okay.
you want to. Oh, it won't make a difference, will it?
I can't right now. It's
Okay, that's all right. Just leave it.
Apple requires that all apps now work on iPhone and iPad. The big difference here is if you develop for the iPad, there are certain frameworks that allow you to do different types of browsers and different layouts. But all iPhone apps must be able to run on the iPad. And I don't know if you've noticed, but they do a magnifying setup where it looks like the phone, and then you can actually enlarge it to make it look like it fills the screen of the pad. We can always do it. I can show that later if nobody knows what I'm talking about.
It's a 2
Yeah,
times
there's a little
button on the
button in the
bottom
lower
right
right
corner,
hand
right?
corner. So we'll just say both. And then it just asks for your normal stuff that you normally are asked. Charter, style, we'll just go with default. Now, this is the one thing. Arnold asked me the question when I did a little preview with him the other day. What I felt was the big advantage of using WinMobile 17 versus writing it myself in Objective-C. I have not really played with core data on the iPhone yet, so I'm not sure exactly how complex it is. But the fact that I can go with WinMobile and create a database automatically, directly on the phone, and manage it through WinMobile, I find to be quite interesting and quite a nice thing in the fact that it gives me the ability to put a database on my phone very quickly. So that's one advantage of 17 that I can tell you. So, like I said, everything's the same. It looks the same. You just told it that you're going to do an iOS app. I'm not about to create an app here, so what I'm going to do is let me just finish this up, and then I'm going to just cancel out. Yeah, right now you can't do full RAD on this, so you have to do. This is where you can select. Are you going to do a window for the phone or for the pad? Phone. And then you can say which way the orientation is going to be. So you could lock it in portrait or landscape. All depends on what you're doing. If you're presenting your data in a way that it won't tolerate being able to be rotated, then you have to make sure you lock it. Content of the window. Okay, you've got your navigation bar. That's what allows on your phone on the top of it when you see that it gives you the ability to go back from to the previous screen. Your looper or multi-line zones. Loopers are the same as the UI table control. It's just they call it a looper. I can show examples of that later. The bar down here, the tab bar and toolbar, that allows you to have, let's just say you had a business app and one part was your say your table, you're just a list of accounts, and then you had a map or a schedule. So if you had different functions or settings,
or something.
that's where you would put that. So you can just enable, and then you can put your own icons in here. Go to the next screen.
And the loopers, like what's really popular on the web. I mean, Glenn showed a lot of that on WebDev.
Yeah, the UI tab controllers, use it a lot. I use it a lot in my last app. Here's where you can add the icons that you want.
Oh, that looks too easy, man. You can drag them
There's one for
around
Andy.
or like
Star.
Woohoo!
Okay.
I like it already.
And there you go. There's your screen. That's not going to do anything, but that was weird. Didn't go to the test. I guess it's not. I don't have enough in here for it to actually do anything. But let me load the app that I have here. Let's just close this. All right, this app that I created is actually for. There's a service down in Disney called Owner's Locker. What it'll.
Could you
Yeah,
maximize
I'm doing that
your
right
window?
now.
Maybe that might help. I don't know.
Let me know when it's
thanks.
good. Actually, I'll just do full.
As big
Yeah, I'm
as
going to
you
make
can
it just a
it'd
full
be
screen
great.
here. How's that?
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. I've got it as stretched out as I can.
The service down in Disney is called Owner's Locker, and what it does is if you go down there a lot, you can buy these little lockers, and they look just like this one in the picture, to put all your stuff that you need, like your sun lotion and stuff. I figured, let me see if I can write an app to manage your lockers. And that's what this is. But I wanted to offer a free one. I wanted to offer one version that's free that allows you to manage one locker. And then I was going to have a pay version that allows you to have unlimited lockers. But I also wanted to put ads in here. So that was one of the delays in me doing this webinar is I wanted to figure out how to use Objective-C code in WinMobile 17 to allow me to do iAds, which I'll show you in a minute. So I created just this little splash screen. I will probably end up putting some information down here about the company and stuff and who we are, but splash screen doesn't do much. The first thing that they see after that, actually isn't that one, is your locker list. This is just a standard looper. Okay. Formatted to hold the information that I want. The nice thing is all right, that's still from the French. I haven't translated that. I had the beta version of this, so the French version. I have not had to use many specifically iOS code to do anything on this yet. I know WinMobile does have some code that's for the iOS, but I've not really had the need. All right, so what I've done on this screen is where I wanted to put my iAds. So in order to do that, I had to create a global procedure. Now, if you've done any coding on your own, you've noticed that there's an area here that you can click that switches between, say, W language, Java, etc. Well, in this case, it switches between W language and Objective-C. So I made this global procedure called iAdd display. At this point, you are writing in Objective-C, 100%. You cannot mix W language in here. This code will get translated in when you create your project. It will go into Xcode as Objective-C and read it as such.
Almost like an include,
Yep,
huh?
yep.
Just drops it in.
You need to add your kits that you're using, your frameworks. So once you have to know the frameworks. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to show the Apple website, because if you decide to do coding, you need to know what framework you're working in. And when you generate this app, there is a section where it asks you what frameworks are you going to be using in the app, which we'll show you when we generate it. So I just created a simple function call called iAddDisplay. And here I am passing the view. I'll show this call in a second. This is, yes.
Hey Rob, do me
Sure.
a favor, will you? Hold down your
Okay.
control key and scroll your mouse, and that'll make all of the
Sure.
text
Oh,
larger.
cool. Okay.
So that way
All right, now did
everybody
it
can
go off
see
the
that.
screen a little there? Let me just.
Yeah, you might have to squeeze it down a little bit, but that way people
Okay.
can see
How's
the
that?
text a little easier.
All right. So now here's a little Objective-C. All right. In all of iOS, you're dealing with views. You have to consider everything that's on the screen is a view. And you are pushing or popping views off of your main view. You really don't ever put anything on your main view. It's a blank screen. It's a blank slate. And you put subviews on your main views. So in this case, what I've had to do is I declare a UI view that I've called temp view. That little asterisk you just put in. It's a pointer. You always put it in. You always put this in when you declare this. So you're saying to the system you want your temp view to be equal to. Now you're basically recasting because W language has no idea what a UI view is. You can't call it a UI view in W language because it's going to give you errors. So you pass it as a void. down here is where you say to Objective-C, nope, this is actually a view. This will make a little more sense when I show you exactly what WinMobile generates when it creates an app. So now, if we had gone back to it's going to be a little too much to do, but if we go back to the IAD frameworks and look up the reference to IAD, you will see they have this thing called AD banner view. Is in this one is called a class. So what you're doing is you're now saying I want to create a subclass of that called add view. And this is just basically housekeeping here. You're saying you want an AD banner view, you're allocating and initializing it. So now you've got another view, an add view created.
So that's an instance of the add view.
Yes.
Can you do more than one?
There's no real reason to, because the ad's going to be all the same. So you could create multiple ad views, but they're all going to be the same ad. So that's why this is a global, because now anywhere in my project, if I want to add an ad, I want to put ads on, all I need to do is call this, which I'll show the call in a second, and now you have ads on that page. So there's no real reason to create multiples here, because this will work for each view. Each view is active at its own time. If it's on the screen, it's active. If you pop it off the screen, it's no longer active. All right, so now this is some housekeeping. The current size. This is information that's given to you. You could make this different, but why make it bigger than the size of the actual ad anyway? So you just basically tell it that you want to do it in the portrait. There's a portrait and a landscape version. Since we're doing everything in portrait, we'll do a portrait. If not, there are calls that allow it to say, okay, if we rotate into the landscape mode, then you can say the size of the identifier is that of landscape. It's kind of like a macro of all your size information.
So this snippet of code, you would just create a code brick.
Anytime you want to use ads, here you go. Cut and paste this, and you're good to go. Then here, this temp view, add sub view, add view. You create the view that we are currently showing on our screen. We created a view in Objective-C called temp view, and that's where we're referring here. So we're saying on that view, I want to add a sub view. Now it's not replacing that view. It's adding a view inside of a view. This is where Objective-C can get quite confusing, because you can have multiple views in a view, and all views are active at the same time. So we're creating a little sub view, a little block on the top of the screen, basically, based upon the size information here, called that add view. We're adding add view into temp view. Now, that's your global. Let me I gotta see my, if we go back to here, go to the view. If you notice, I've selected the whole view. All I need to do is, when I initialize that screen, is I call my global. Now you have to pass it through as a handle. It's one of the requirements to use the Objective-C calls, is you call it a handle, and then the name of the page that you want to put the view on. There's no reason to really do this, say, at the beginning of the app and just say, oh, I'm just going to throw views on everything. You're better off just doing it here. It deals better with the memory management in the whole system to have it called when you initialize the page. There's no reason to be calling add views or add banners on views that aren't even being displayed. And in Objective-C, when that view disappears, it should, if WinMobile does it right, release the memory so you won't have any memory faults. All right, now, there's a big problem with doing code like this. If I go and try to run my app with external code in it, it'll start to run. Now, if you notice how fast, I just want to make note, we did that webinar the other day with Android and how long it took for the simulator to load up. Quite a bit different here. If I click this, I'm going to get this error. That's basically because I have Objective-C code in here and it doesn't like it. It doesn't know how to run it. There is a command, I looked it up earlier. I don't know if I still have it on the screen here. There is a command that allows you to tell the system if you are running in simulator. I think it was, there's a way to, I can't remember what it was. So you could have it so that if you're not in simulator, or if you're in simulator, don't run this code. And that way, at least you can test the core parts of your product without having to generate the iOS, go to Objective-C, and see it run. In the interest of time, what I'll do, yep.
Hey, Rob, that simulator, is that the simulator that comes from
Nope.
Apple, or does it come from
Good question.
WX?
This is the simulator that's in the WM17.
WM?
All right. It's a little different. It has some other stuff here that doesn't exist in the other one. But otherwise, it looks the same. And you know, see a custom simulator. So it's, but unfortunately, you can't test further than that. But we'll bounce over to my Objective-C, and I'll show you this running on there, and that way you can see how it works. And we'll go into some more stuff. All right. To generate, this is how you generate the app. Now, the identifier of the bundle does not matter all that much unless you're going to distribute, you're doing your final build, or if you're going to be using something like push notifications, because the push notification certificate is per the app ID. So you really should just make the habit of creating your bundle identifier from the start. Yeah, just you could create a distribution with an asterisk here instead of my purple locker, and that way it'll work for anything. But my personal opinion, you're building apps because you want to put them on the Apple site, and if you start doing things shortcut and then you decide, oh wait, now I want to do it this way, you got to make sure everywhere your identifier is, and I'll show you there's many places, you change it. So you're better off just starting with the right identifier from the start, and that way you always have, you follow the same procedure for every app, you'll never make a mistake, or you shouldn't. So now, in Xcode, which I'll show, you create these icons for the phone. These are the icons that are on the application screen of your, when somebody downloads it, the application icon. You need to create two of them. One is for iPhone 3. The other one is the iPhone 4. It's basically, one is for the standard resolution display and one is for the Retina display. And then you also have your iPad one. You don't have to put these in, and you can put these in through Xcode, but obviously they're trying to make this thing as streamlined as possible.
It helps you get organized if you follow
Yeah,
their
yeah.
lead, right?
Well, I don't like this part. If you have an app and you notice that when you load that app, it seems to load really fast because you get the screen instantly. But then you also think sometimes you go pushing a button or something that's on that screen, you're like, wait a minute, it's frozen, it's locked up. It's not the case. Apple has a little trick. These aren't splash screens. What they are is they launch a picture of your front page app, a front page of your app, immediately. While the app is loading in the background, it's showing the screen. This is where you put those little pictures.
Heck of a status window, huh?
It's a fake.
It's a fake.
It's not per Apple's um, rules, if you want to call it. You can't use this as a splash screen. And it's not because they're trying to be picky and they're trying to deceive people. It's just that if your app loads really fast, that screen may only be up for 1 second, if that. Sometimes if your app is, if the person's phone is really loaded up with other apps in the background, it may take 10 seconds for your app to load. So the two thoughts there is one, if you're going to put a splash screen on, you want the splash screen to be on for 5 seconds and boom, gone. The second thing is they don't want, people sometimes don't want, if your app says it takes 15 seconds to start, they don't want to be looking at your ad of your splash screen for 15 seconds. It's like, come on, all right, fine. They get annoyed. So by putting this screen of being what the app is, people just think, oh, wait, it's not finished loading. They still see that the app is about to load and they're just waiting for it. It's a psychological thing. Here's your versioning numbers. You can set that whatever, in auto increments based on. Now, this is where you put in your framework, your external libraries to include. Um, I'm a little, I'm not 100% sure on this, and I am trying to figure out a little more about it. I believe you do not have to copy your framework over into the directories um, of your WinMobile to get the frameworks. I believe you can just type the framework in here. When it compiles, it'll pull it in. Um, I wish I should add another framework here and not. I believe I copied the iAds into my directory. I should do it here with just something else and see if it gives me an error.
Probably
I
this is
think it
just
is.
a
I think it's just a
reference, right?
reference.
And then it picks it up
Yeah,
on the
because
Xcode side.
WinMobile cannot compile Objective-C, so it doesn't matter what frame if it has the physical file for the framework. But this you have to put these in here though because I think it's part of the calls when it creates the file. Then you have other.
But you could, Rob, you could develop an app without ever putting your own
Yep.
Objective-C code in
Only
here. It's only when you need to
exactly.
extend,
If you
right?
do
That
just a simple database access, whether it's calling XML or whatever, and you're not adding any kind of iAds or um, push
push or
notifications
whatever.
or accelerometer type calls or anything like that, I'm sure they're going to eventually be making calls on here for that. But right now, I looked for iAd and I couldn't find any references to iAd in any of the help for this. I'm not. This is just. I guess this is for if you have files for internal icons or instructions that in a PDF format that you're going to call to put on a screen. This is where you would add those. You can choose what is the minimal version. There's no real reason to do any like 4.3. Just leave it at 4.1. It's the oldest version, and that way you cover the largest fan base, if you want to call it that. If you start limiting it, people with old iPods won't be able to download your app because they maybe don't have the updated version. So, um, yeah, don't worry about the sharing of files right now. I haven't even played with that. That's like the iCloud type concept. And it's done. And it generates. Okay. Now, once it generates, it creates multiple directories. Let me go to the project one. And this is where it includes all the graphics, and I'll show you these delegates in a minute. This right here, this is all the code. This is the WinMobile code. It is uneditable in the Xcode environment. It's all generated into these A files, kind of like DLLs. The only thing you can edit are these down here. So let me switch over. I mean, how are we for time here? I don't want to. All right.
You got lots of
Who knows?
time.
Maybe we'll get a little more done than I thought. While I switch over again, is there any questions?
Yeah, if you have questions, type it in the chat or raise your hand up if you have a mic on a headset. Oh, Chris wrote some questions there. They're on the
Skype. All
they're
right.
on the
Let's see.
Skype chat. You want me
Let's
to
see. I'm
read those
here.
to you?
Okay. Do you have to do this? Hmm. Okay. Let's see
You
here.
have to do this.
All right.
Sorry, I just
You have to
noticed
do
them
this in
now. They
Objective
were
C,
asked
or can be
earlier.
done in W language. I'm not exactly sure when he asked that question. To do what? If he's talking about the IAD, there is no W language code to do that. You have to do that, and that's also a framework of Apple. So you would have to use their code in order to do it. There's nothing stopping you creating your own advertising system to sell advertising. So let's say you created your own. I use my restaurant app as an example. Like I created my own advertising. The advertising is pulled from an XML file on my server. So I can create the advertising links and everything right there. I created a banner on the top of my screen. Looks just like iAds, except I control the ads. So if you want to do that yourself, you could probably do everything in W language there, pulling from an external database, and there you go. You've got your own ad system. I'm trying iAds because I just want to know what it's like. I want to try everything. I can switch that over to my own system if I want at some point, but right now I'm going to try iAds, see if I can make some money from Apple. Is there a purpose of testing up? The test is good for checking to make sure your database, your analysis is right. If you're doing stuff with XML, you want to make sure all your XML is set up right. So testing in WM17 just saves a few steps because in order to test in Xcode, you have to generate your app, copy the files over to a directory on your Apple, and then run the test. So it just saves a few steps to be able to test. But if you do add any kind of Objective-C code, you're going to ultimately have to test in the Xcode environment. Let's see, it won't run on. You're going to find it really hard. You're going to have to really use some fancy stuff in order to not be able to be run on an older iPod, iPhone. Apple was really, I think it's pretty impressive, the fact that they've had so many generations of hardware and stuff that is built today can still be run on the older hardware. The only problem you may find is it runs slower because the processors are smaller and the resolution of the screen, if you're doing a game or something that's high resolution pictures, obviously on an older iPod, it doesn't have the Retina display, so it doesn't have that resolution. But or say you're calling a camera, like I do in my locker program, which I'll show you in a second, there's a camera function to take a picture. Because on the owner's lockers, what they do is they give you a security tag with a serial number on it. And they tell you to take a picture or to write that number down. So when you go and you call them and say, next year I want it, I want it back, you can check the security tag to make sure nobody's opened your locker on you. Well, I put a camera function, which is another nice thing of WinMobile. It's very easy. You just drag it, and I can go back to that screen and show that call to take a picture and save it in your photo library of the tag, and it also saves it in the app. Okay, let's see. All right, somebody wants to see how the database is. Okay, I'll go back and we can look at that. Chris, no. The best iOS emulator right now is in WinMobile. For their, it's actually not an emulator really. It's their own simulator. But no, there is no way to run iOS in a Windows environment. So Xcode has to be running on an Apple. All right, so let's open up this app here.
So do you find that working on a Mac with parallels
Yes.
is the best way to go? Because you
Just
can
for everybody's
move
reference,
stuff back.
that Windows 7 that I showed WinMobile on is actually running on a MacBook Pro. I'm running two screens here. I got my laptop screen, which we're on right now, and then when I switch over to the WinMobile, we're on my other screen, which is running Windows 7 in parallels. Now, we go over here to, all right, here is Xcode. Oh, I
Are you
thought I did
switching
already.
over now?
Oh,
We
okay.
still
No, maybe I
see.
didn't. Let me see here. I go back to this. All right, how's that? All right, so
There
now,
you go.
okay.
Yep.
I'll zoom in so you can see the text better, but I'll just do an overview of Xcode. Okay.
It's pretty
All
good.
right, so over here
It's
is
pretty good.
your file browse. Here's where it lists all your sources, any miscellaneous files that were brought in, like pictures. Your framework, which is all the different frameworks. Now, if you notice here, this core text framework, this is all the WinMobile stuff. If I click one,
So what was the easy? Is there an easy way
what,
to copy
what,
this over to
yep,
the
when
Mac side?
in the emulator, the VM mode, there is a home screen, there's a home
Uh-huh.
file. So what I do is I create the application, and then I copy that whole directory to my home folder into the documents directory of the home folder, and then I can access it from here. It's the same as this here. If I just do,
Almost like a network
it's a
drive or something?
shared directory
Or just a
between
share?
your host and your VM. So this is where it is. This
Ah,
is where I save all that stuff.
I'd do something like that
Yeah.
just within the Windows side.
But here's all your core graphics, your audio. Yeah, I'm not using audio, but it pulls it over anywhere. That could be a little bit of a, I'd have to see the compile. It's pulling over audio and there's no audio called in my app. So I don't know if WinMobile, when it generates, just pulls in these standard frameworks and brings them in. So I don't know if it actually compiles them There's I'd have to look at how big my app is when it compiles to see if it does or not. You can usually tell by the size. But back to the layout. So as you can see, I've selected one of these library WD70s objects.a. There's nothing to edit. So it's whatever WinMobile's generating. Once it's generated, you can't in Xcode change it. Only place that you can change anything happens up here. In your app delegate.h, and the app delegate is basically just, that's like that blank screen that I was telling you about. It's just your standard. If you look at the call, it's just basically one object, one window. Done. It's got one object. The layout here is this. You have a property. This whole non-atomic and retain is how the memory management is going to handle this object. There's all different layouts for this depending on what you're doing. IB outlet is interface builder outlet. That's another little thing that is, I'll talk about in a second. It's going to be of the type of UI window, and you're calling it window. That's it. That's all you need. So you don't really edit this. You don't touch this. You just leave it. Here is where your custom code is. And your Objective-C.mm, they call it. This is that call, the code that I put in. Now it included this ST, and that doesn't matter. That's just your standard stuff. That it puts it in. You don't have to put it in. Imports are what I did in the other WinMobile, and this is the call. Now if I select this, you notice over here on the right, let me see here if I can.
Wow, they actually have a section.
Okay.
No, it's pretty clear.
This is going to be your best friend. If you have a call and you're not 100% sure, if you have one you're like, oh, but I want to do this, right here, you hit the class reference. It's not letting me. Maybe because I didn't in here. Let's see if I go normal. Hit class reference. It bounced on the other screen. There you go. You can get all the information about that class. So let's just say in this case I wanted to add something, but you didn't want to go through the whole recompile process. You could possibly do it right here in Xcode. You can just add the line. Hold on a second. Oh, a little coughing fit.
So there's questions in the
I can see
chat,
the
but you
chat here.
can't see the
Okay, let's see
chat.
here. All
Oh,
right.
you can?
New MacBooks coming
Okay.
out mid-June. Okay, so
Whenever you're ready. No, not that
oh,
chat. The chat from
Chris asked so you can run Windows on the
the
Mac
Adobe Connect.
to do iOS. Yes, that's what I do every day. That's how I do everything. No, what are the questions on the? Oh wait, maybe I can now because I'm on this screen here. All right,
Yeah, you can bring it up there.
just enlarge this because it's. I understand how to write. Okay, good.
I'll make it bigger for you.
I'm not sure. .gen. I think he's talking about the folder that I've generated in. I did show that. We'll go back to that in a second. I want to show the camera thing anyway. So let's just, all right. So this is where that code is for the your custom code. And then it does all this stuff. You don't touch this. They obviously have created their own little native class call and how that calls the native information. It's got code in here that I'm not sure what it means, so I don't touch it. This is what matters. Yeah, that's the
Well, that's
scary
all
stuff.
scary stuff,
Yep,
but
that
they
came in
come in
automatically. So
automatically.
WM does that, and
Yeah, I
it's
like that.
yeah, it says
Automatic's
something about
great.
parameters and all that. I don't touch it. It's this is what matters. Same thing with this file here. This is your app delegate, the call. This is where it's basically calling some of those modules that we saw down here. Now,
Mm.
all right, just as an aside, now this is where I have to play with the push notifications and stuff. It may be managed automatically if I added in the WinMobile 17 external code. In real life, you end up putting that in this application did function launch with options. This is where you end up putting the call for push notifications because you have to tell the phone to prompt the person, do they want to have push notifications? And if they say yes, you then transmit their unique ID information to your SQL server or whatever type of database server you're going to use to store that information. And that's how the pushes work. And then you make a call to that and transmit those numbers to Apple, and then Apple sends the messages out. That Doing that is going to be another webinar. If anybody wants to learn push notifications, we'll do that. That's a little much for right now.
So you actually send things to the Apple
Yes.
server to send
You
out to the.
manage the list of numbers
Oh
of
boy.
people. Every phone has a unique ID number. It's a UDID. And that number gets you save that. So every time somebody says yes to push, that information gets saved. Now you can save more than just the number. You could save the person's name, their email address, whatever information you want to prompt them for. Um, but you got to kind of have to tell them you're doing it. So I'm not sure how because it's a basic window that said, do you want to register for push notifications? But nonetheless, once you store that information and then you want to send a push, right now when I do it, it basically has stores in the database what restaurant ID that person is registered to, and then it filters based on the restaurant ID and sends all that information to the Apple servers. You could do that in another way to store, say, an employee ID, let's just say, or an employee class. So let's say you had all your salesmen and you want to send a message to all your salesmen. You can then send a push notification to all your salesmen. Or all of your delivery guys. You can send a push notification to all your delivery guys. Or all of your supervisors or whatever. So by situating your push notifications right in the app, you can have very big flexibility on what you can do with push. Push can be very powerful.
So you think Apple's being a big brother? I mean, they store all
I
everything
don't
you
know what they
push.
do with the messages that are pushed. The way that it works is there's a server that you go to and you send that information to the server. You know, it's one of those things where, yeah, you could say that Big Brother, or maybe they do store it. But if you want that functionality, that's really the only way to do it. So you got to take the good with the bad. The way I look at it, there are so many push notifications going out a day from all the different apps. Do you think they have the manpower to actually read every single push notification to figure out is anybody doing anything?
Well, I think the
Yeah, there you go.
CIA's checking everything.
Apple is, yeah. I'm sure there's, you know, yeah.
Oh, they hear us right now.
Don't say too much.
Yeah, I will be quiet.
So, anyway, so this is what it looks like. There's not much you can do. As for if you look here,
Well, they could affect your business if they don't like you. They could
eh,
shut you
well,
down.
they
Your
tell you if
pushes
you
won't go out anymore.
spam the push. In other words, if you use the push too much, they will shut you down. They will stop. They don't want the push to become a chat. You know, if so if you're sending out
Makes
messages
sense.
like every 30 seconds. It's like, wait, what are you doing? Yeah, that's
Like a
not what it's
Twitter,
meant
right?
for. For the restaurant app, I told the restaurateur, I said, look, this is for something to say, hey, we're having a special happy hour, $2 PBR drafts from something to something. That's fine. But to say, hey, I'm bored, come on down. You know what? I'm really bored. I'm watching the Rangers game. Come on down. No, don't do that because eventually they're going to get wise to you and they're going to think you're just using it as an instant messaging type package. It's more for just a quick notification, like you get with the news, the news people. They'll send out a push saying something happened. That's fine. But using it for just like chat, it just they don't want that. I had mentioned earlier about the bundle identifier. Every app, if you select the main folder up here and you go to your summary, you will see your bundle identifier. You could have this as just with the asterisk, but this is where all the other stuff is too. If I had put icons in for the launch icons, the launch pictures, the app icons, this is where all that stuff is done.
But they'll pull this. Will they pull this from the WWM
Yes, this
side
is
when I
where
filled it in?
that bundle is right there.
So it comes straight in there.
Yep.
Okay.
And this
So
is,
all that
remember,
stuff goes over
deployment
here.
target
Okay.
4.1.
Cool.
There it is. The
Right.
build number
Right.
32.
Yeah.
Um, this is another cool section that if you guys are getting into it and you want, I put variables in here for restaurant IDs and phone numbers so that I can pull it. It's called the main bundle. Um, these are all build settings. This is where you end up putting your, like if you're doing a debug or a release. Go back up here. This is your code signing. So right here, you see I have it set as my developer account. So now down here is all the different certificates. So if, for example, here you'll see this is a developer. Oh, here you go. Here's my developer for the Salt development. And here's my distribution for the Salt. Salt is the first restaurant that bought my app. So I have the two. So if I'm testing, I switch over to developer. I do everything on the developing side. You can't run the simulator on a distribution build. So you have to switch over to developer. Once you switch over, you can do all you want. To do push, you have to do things a little different. You got to make a setting change on the web service, but it's no big deal. It's just called sandboxing. They have a sandbox site that you just put the word sandbox in your website list and name, and it goes to that, which is nice. Yep.
But different
Yep. You have
names,
two
huh?
different.
Huh. You would you would think they would have let you just add a extension
You
like
wish, but
dev or something,
what it is
so you don't have
let,
to
let me.
create two
I
different
keep
ones.
harping on push, but push is a great example of this. Let's just say you are changing your app and you're doing something with the push. Let's say I
Right.
wanted to add the ability to have the class of person employee. Now you want to test this. You don't want to do it. If you test on a distribution system, everybody out there is going to get your pushes. So if you're
Yeah.
playing and you're pushing like
Mm-hmm.
10 or 15 messages every couple minutes, everybody's going to get annoyed. They're going to turn it off. So by going to a developer from a developer environment to a distribution environment, now all the pushes are going to only come to you because you're in development mode, not distribution mode. So it helps there. It helps with that. Yeah, it's just the
So
way it
just
works.
plan on it.
It's just
Just plan on it. Okay.
it's just the way the certificates work, and that's why I'm saying it looks overwhelming, but once you've done it a few times, it's like okay, no big deal. So that's all. That's a big overview of this. Now, if I run this on the simulator, which is nice. As you can see, you can go iPhone, iPad, or your actual device. I plug my. Let me do that. Let me just give me a second here. Do the camera thing in a minute. Let me just plug this in so it does its syncing. All right, so if I go and run, oops, hold on, let me just.
Are you gonna come out to the
I'm
WWDC?
gonna see what my schedule's like. I hope so.
You know
Oh,
they
the
sold out in
WWDC.
like
Oh, I would love to.
2 hours or
Yeah,
three
no, the
hours.
Apple thing. Yeah, did you hear what they did? They launched
Yeah.
the tickets at
No.
like 8 o'clock or 8:15 local time. I mean, Eastern time, which was 5 a.m. California time. They made kind of made a mistake, believe it or not. Apple making a mistake. Um, and so all the people on the
Oh
West
no.
Coast that wanted tickets to WWDC weren't able to get them because they basically sold out because all the East Coast guys grabbed it before them. Yeah, I don't know how they resolved it, but they said that they kind of screwed up there.
Did screw up because like me, I can't even go to
Yeah,
them.
I mean, I would
Go
love to.
to
I know
it.
it's expensive, but I hear it is
Listen,
it's an experience.
I have friends that got tickets, so what the heck.
All right, so
Okay. Maybe that's when they'll show the new
yeah, that's usually when
MacBook
they do
Pro, huh?
launch that stuff. Let me just deal with my little happy iTunes here. It's going to.
So
I
it's
plugged
running
in
it
my
now,
phone,
the simulator?
so it's kind of waiting for like this to sync up and everything. So I slowed it down. Normally it bounces right up. The other thing too is when you run the simulator here, it does a complete recompile every time. Yes.
Oh, it
Yeah.
does. Okay. Well, it has to, I guess.
Those are my pictures on the phone. If you click your home button and the power button at the same time, it takes a snapshot of your screen, and that's how you create those images. So once you develop your app,
Oh.
all you have to do is run the app on your phone, take the pictures of the screens that you want, put them into iPhoto, and then go to and then
Wait, say that again. To
push
take a
the
picture of my
power button
screen, what
and the
do I
home
do?
button, the button on the bottom at the same time, and then there'll be a
At the same
photo
time?
put into your
Okay.
yeah.
In the camera area, the roll, camera roll. Okay.
I should have waited. Here it is.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
is
it
a
doesn't
little
have these
different.
little icons. It looks like the actual phone.
Actually, this one looks. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, the speaker
Yeah.
grid there looks even better. It looks sharp.
Like I said, I shouldn't have plugged in my phone at the same time. I slowed it down. All right, I'm going to stop it for a second here. All right, so now if I click this, hold on. I opened the wrong version. Bear with me a second. All right, this is, yeah. Let me just explain this. What I did here was I added in my WM17 a looper, thinking I had to give the Objective-C a view to place the IAD. I was wrong. It doesn't need that. So once I got rid of that, it all worked. So now let me just open.
Yeah, you were telling me that it actually covered it up. Hey, you know what the theme is, right? If you're working too hard, you're
Well, in a
probably
lot of
doing it
cases,
wrong.
that's let's see here.
Oh, it's going to be a real shift to go to the Mac from the Windows side, I think.
Weird here is I'm not seeing. All right, let me well, let me. Okay. Well, you know what? I'm going to go back to the other screen. I'm going to copy the file over again. But I'm also going to, since.
Yeah, I need a review on that anyway.
All right, so we're back to, can you see the 7 now? All right, so now let's just go real quick. I want to show you this. This was really nice to be able to do this very easily. Each locker, like I said, has a picture. All you need, create it, put an image type. And then under the click image, all you need to do is these few lines of code right here. And you can turn on the camera of the phone and capture an image. That's it.
That's it?
That I liked. That was one of the,
Damn.
okay, so
No kidding.
that kind of shows the potential that WM17 has on doing iOS, the fact that that's all you need to take a picture.
Can you do a scroll, control scroll on that? Just so people see how, like, very little code.
How's that?
Yeah. Awesome.
That's all I did. I just created basically an image, clickable image, and say image is a click area.
Yeah, Hemant says it's pretty simple. Even
I haven't
QR
even touched
barcodes
the
are that
QR system.
simple.
I want to play with that. I have some ideas with that too, but and then I just use the default little photo. Now on the iPhone, it works best with PNG image types. I've tried to use JPEG and it just
Okay.
doesn't like it. Make everything PNG. You won't have any problems with it showing on the phone. All right, so now, yes,
P is for
and
portable.
it is portable. So let's go to, I don't need to regenerate. Let me see.
So so you just generated that stuff right there.
You gotta find the.
On this 6.
That's
So that's May 6th,
yeah,
right?
that's what I'm.
Not June 5th.
Just yeah, you know, let's just.
Looking for June 1st.
Now that you've seen that, you can see there's the identifier again. Images. Yep.
So you can just hit
Yep.
the middle one and just go,
And
right?
just- There we go. Okay.
Yeah,
All right,
there's
so what I do is I
one.
just copy this. And I come down to this home documents. Now
That's
I'm
your
right. Now,
that's your map drive on your
yeah. You see it's home P. That basically says it's the,
that's the Apple side, right?
yeah,
134 bytes.
and that's a bit big. That makes me wonder about all the frameworks. All right, so now let's bounce back over to normal here. You want to open up the one that's Xcode project.
Okay. Filing 2 of 3. Linking. Pretty clean interface.
Once you learn how to
isn't it?
navigate it, yeah. I'll admit, when I first started doing this, it was like, whoa.
But I guess in the beginning it's like,
Exactly.
where do I start, right? Well, WM wasn't that, or WD. I mean, that thing's overwhelming too.
Okay, now,
When you first get there.
there you go. There's my IAD. Okay, now, if you look
Oh,
down
there's your
here,
test ad. Yay!
don't know where I can put this where it can be read. You're going to get errors. When you're in the test mode, it's going to tell you, oh, it can't find the list and all that stuff. It's because Apple just provides this. You will not see actual ads until you go to a deployment certificate. Until then, you're only going to see the test ad. When you click the test ad, it then pops up the ad. So that's how easy it is to add advertising into your app. And heck, even if you get a couple pennies a click or whatever, and you got a couple thousand people clicking a month, yeah, you can earn some money. But what the main goal, obviously, when you do this is you create a limited version of your app to get people to say, like, I'm hoping with this app it's going to do one initially free, and they're going to say, well, but I have a locker for Christmas time. I got a locker for the summertime. I'm down there in Easter. I got 4 or 5 lockers. Well, pay the 99 cents or $1.99, whatever, and you can get unlimited amount of lockers to manage. And there you go. You can show content. You can put in all the individual items and stuff. And
I don't know where else in the
there you
world
go.
I
How
would
you
have
like
learned
that?
about
Yeah,
purple
they're all
lockers.
purple. That's actually a picture from their website. I can't really use it because I have to assume it's copyrighted. I'll have to put my own my own little box there eventually, but right, so let's see. Any questions? I haven't looked in a second. Let's see. Dave, yes, Dave, you have to use a Mac to actually do your final compile. You can develop all you want on WinMobile 17, but when you want to put it up to the store, you have to use a Mac.
Now, how do you share it between your internal, your ad hoc? Do you just give a
Yes.
IPA
When
file
when
or
you get
some
the
kind of thing like
to
that?
do ad hoc though, you have to have the that ID number. Well, here, let me cancel this. Let's go to there's a thing called the organizer. The organizer is really nice. All right, here you can get all your documentation, but you can look at all the devices that you have in your library, if you want to call it. So right now I have my phone connected. See this ID right here? That huge number? That is the number that is used for ad hoc. That is the number that's used for push notifications. I think it's also in-app purchases. They use that number. So that's unique to your device.
I'll
So
add that
if
to
I had
my
everybody's
list.
number and I did an ad hoc distribution, I create the, over here, if you look here, it's not activated because I don't have it set for development, but this archive, what you do is when you, this is going to be part of part 2 on this thing, you create what's called an archive. And then it has to go through a process through iTunes Connect in order to get approved. Um,
Alan, yes, you have to have a Mac. You can't get around it. Unless you can trick it by doing some kind of VMware
I've
and
never
load
heard of anybody
iOS, but I
successfully
don't
being able
think
to take
that's
a
frowned upon.
PC and run. I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm sure there's a way.
I've seen them. Go check out
There's yeah,
no,
there is
just get
a
a you gotta get a Mac.
yeah, the drivers and
There's
stuff.
issues.
You gotta
There's
remember that
issues if
with
you
the
try and do it the
when
other
you
way.
buy a Mac and you run Windows, Apple supplies you with all the Windows drivers for every piece of hardware that you have in that computer. So when you run the Windows, it automatically is supplied with the drivers for the hardware that you are running. That's one of the reasons why people say a Mac runs the Windows better than a PC because the drivers are written for the hardware. It's not one of those situations where there's 5 different versions of a sound card and they write one generic driver to run all 5 versions of the sound card. This is you have one driver for that one sound card. Boom, you're done. It's going to work, and it works well. Yeah, Glenn just chimed
That's
in.
the advantage Apple
Hi, Glenn.
had when they.
Okay, so here, this is what has all your provisioning. If you see here, it's got all my profiles and everything on this device. And then what applications are on it. You can look at your console for the phone. You can see your logs. So you can see crash logs. Look at this. Skype. Skype loves to crash. So do some other things. Well, my thing was crashing like mad, but it's new development. But you can get all kinds of information through the organizer. It's a very useful tool.
God, can you imagine how big that would be for my Clarion?
You'd run out of hard disk space.
No, I'm kidding.
No, we're not
Oops.
going there.
I gotta edit this.
We're all laughing. All right. Where else? Where else? I don't think this has really any. There's just a lot of sections to it.
Oh, yeah, Pete's right. That's the
Hackintosh,
one I was
yeah,
talking
I
about. They
couldn't
call
remember
it
the name.
Hackintosh.
Um, all right. just because we like playing with it.
We clear the chat so that it's.
I'm going to start the webcam. We're going to run the app on the actual phone. Jump off here.
Okay, so let me put it here.
See, all right.
Let's go ahead and start it. Let me make it bigger.
Hey. All
Hey,
right.
Rob,
I
how
need
you
to
doing?
keep my screen. Okay. All right, I'm going to start the compile. Let's see if this.
Oh, sorry, Pete. Go ahead and type that question again. I just whacked his question. He had a
Right.
question on
Okay.
UUID.
Oh.
Yeah, but I whacked it, so he has to type it in again.
Wait, I had a question up there. All right. You can rewrite it.
Yeah, my bad.
Right, so it's still building it. There we go. Yep.
So is it just going to pop up as soon as it's ready?
Yep. There you go.
Even if it's off?
Nope.
It'll just pop right up, huh? Ooh, there we go. It's coming. Ooh, purple locker. Click.
It does.
Hey, this one
The
doesn't have
test
the
ad
ad.
takes a little while.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It comes later. It doesn't come immediately. Ads
And then,
come on a delayed basis.
yep.
There you go.
Yep.
But it's still the test one, isn't it?
Trying to do this from behind here. Okay. So
Up, up.
for every when you have your device plugged in, go down here, this little arrow. You get your debug screen, and now it's telling me because I'm running on the device now. It's saying a banner view has an ad, but it may be obscured. The message is only printed once per banner view. There's no as you see, it's not obscured, but it will tell you whatever errors may occur, come up as you run your device. So as you're testing, let's see if it gives anything here, and you can force stuff here. There's the equivalent of a trace function that you can put in, so you can put in your own debug to allow. Now there is one thing that I did notice, and that I just don't know if it's my own my problem or a problem with WinMobile. The database is slow. I wish me me um,
Oh, it is slow?
if I let me
Are
see.
you
I
talking
clicked it. I don't
about
know if it's going to show up, but when I clicked that,
here, I'll make it
um,
bigger again.
just
Okay.
move my screen down so I can see here. Okay. If I click on the item, I successfully did it or not there. It seems to take a long time for it to actually register and show the individual items. And there's not really many in there. At this point, there's probably none or one. So I don't know what the problem is. I don't know if it's the phone really doesn't like the hyperfile database system in it, or did I do something wrong in my analysis? There, see how long it took for that to come up?
Hemet said he had the same experience as well, and he's still researching it out. So maybe between
All
the two of
right.
you guys will nail it before I have to do it.
All right. Yeah, Hemet, tell me if you ever find out what's going on, because I really don't want to put this out on the store until I can make it work right. Yeah. Anybody, Glenn, I did.
Or
I
anybody,
didn't want to
anybody.
have
Just
to
let
manage
Rob or
people's
Hemet know.
lists, so I don't want to go to an external database. I didn't want to have to deal with the servers of having, everybody's phones saving onto an external system. I figured keep it internal. It's on the
Yeah,
phone, yeah.
Chris is asking is the data
And
on the
I'm
phone or
using
server? It's on the
Hyperfile.
phone. So
Um,
local storage.
well,
Maybe you should
that's
try
that's going
SQLite
into the
and
whole core data or SQLite type environment. I wanted to try to use the Hyperfile because it was included. It's there. It's why not use it? Um,
native, right? Yeah. Yeah.
you know what? Let me. I'm gonna bounce back over to my analysis on this.
Oh,
That way you
shrink
guys can
your
see that, I don't think
playcenter.
I'm doing anything. Who knows, somebody might see something. But the fact that Hamet saw the same problem, it's not a big database. So it's not like I have a ton of objects that have to be dealt with.
Yeah, Chris,
Yeah,
it's not complex at all. If you look at that screen, it's like, what,
yeah,
less
here it
than
is.
8 feet
I have for the individual
columns.
lockers. Now the one thing I did not do is I did not create a link here between the two. I don't know if that would make any difference. I didn't link the lockers to this. I didn't create a relationship. So,
Or you
you
didn't
know,
have any
I'm just
relationship
looking at that
stuff
now
going
and I'm
on.
wondering if
So,
that has anything to do with it. Um, yeah.
Hammett, did you do that? Did you put a relationship in your database, or was it a one table thing, or
Yeah, I'm seeing.
could be a
Oh, he
blockage
does.
of another
Okay.
kind?
Len
Yeah,
says it
he
could
has
be
relationships too, though.
the sound.
Sound data
No,
type.
where's. No,
Sound.
it's
Do
an
you have
image.
sound?
It there's just you see it says image, but they're calling it the
Yeah, I wonder if
sound.
that slows it
But you see,
down.
that could be why it's calling in that framework, the sound
It's a
framework, because it's
binary
seeing that
view.
they put all those three categories in for the same thing when there isn't really sound.
Uh, hey, when you have time, maybe you can experiment. Hey, Hammett, did you have one too? Did you have a binary in there for either sound or image, or? Yes, he did. Hey, maybe you can try whacking that photo column and see if it made a difference, you know?
Yeah.
Nothing's stored in it though. Wow. Maybe time to hit
Yeah, it's just one of
more
those
PC
things that
soft about that.
I'm not sure why it seems to be so slow. It's funny, somebody else having the same problem.
Yeah, in fact, he had a question about it earlier, and so it's interesting that. Uh-oh, okay. Pete wants you to answer his
Okay,
question.
where's Pete's? Let's see. Is it on, which chat is it on?
Okay, just drag that thing to. It's
Pete,
on the Connect chat. So it's
human.
on the very top. Just scroll that sucker way up. And
Oh, yeah, I talking about
basically, he said
UIDs.
that
That's right. Let me go back up to
uh,
that. Okay.
Pete said,
He said that you store the
yeah,
UID. Push.
You store the UUID for push, but wasn't that a privacy ruckus a few months ago in the Apple
It was the
world,
fact that
or
you
was
can
that something
store other
else?
information about the person when you do push. When you go, all right, let's, here, let me go back here to, since it's coming up, let me show you my app with the push in it, and I'll show you where you could be.
Do you feel alone in that picture? Do you want me to join you?
Wait,
Here, I'll join you for a second.
All right, this is my restaurant app once it's finished loading.
I have my Clarion CIDC
yes.
t-shirt. See that?
I'll just see what I have on.
Advertising.
Haha, I
John
got you
Hickey will
beat.
be really proud of me.
There.
Oh, okay, we're represented. You know, it's a free
I was gonna
world.
say
Tim's proud of
Tim will
you.
be happy.
John's proud of me.
Where was I? Okay. All right. Well, here is an app that is 100%. Can you see that? Or oh, actually, I went full screen. It's not going to work. Yeah, there you go. Okay. You see it now?
Oh, there's your restaurant one.
All right. All right. When you want to do push notification, here's the first call saying that you want to register for remote notifications. And then that ends up calling here. Did register for remote notifications with device token. Okay, what you're doing is you're creating a little string with your device, but then you're going to put, like I've created a little subdirectory called that, where I save my token. That save token.php, I can pass whatever information I want to that PHP. So in the, yes.
So you're using PHP to do this.
Here, let me, all right,
Cool.
since you got a
John,
PHP guy
listen
here,
to
I'll go to
that.
Coda here and I'll show you. All right,
Yeah,
so
Coda.
the
Yeah, you told me
PHP
about
save
Coda.
token, I could pass the user ID, the person's name, the person's phone number, their whatever information they have stored on their phone that you can gain access to, you can pass to your database to store. That's where you start getting privacy issues, because if you have a phone and it says, do you want to register for push notifications, and you say
It's
yes,
accessible, huh?
you don't know what's being saved. So that's where,
Wow.
okay, there's the PHP to save the token data. So obviously, depending on what I pass to this, it'll save it. So I pass actually two pieces of information. I save the token and the restaurant ID, because I can have multiple restaurants. So each restaurant has its own ID number. And so if that restaurant says, okay, I want to push a notification to it, boom, it sends it, and it sends it only to, that's part of the where clause. All right, and here's the send. This is how you send the
Wow, that
message to
looks way
Apple.
too
I said
easy.
we'll do this on a separate webinar, but everybody seems to be interested. So The big difference here, all right, obviously you have your ID, your restaurant ID, and your message. Now it's going to go and grab everything on that restaurant ID and send that message. There's my select. I know, Andy, please don't kill me for that, but oh, he's not? Oh, he was before.
No, Andy's not here, so I won't tell him to
I know he
use.
doesn't like select star, so.
He had to drop off. Yeah, he had
When
to
you
drop off.
do, okay, thanks, Pete.
We won't tell him.
This is the
Pete will
difference
tell
when
him
you go
though.
development versus deployment. This sandbox, you get rid of. So it becomes gateway.push.apple.com. So when you're testing, you're going to gateway.sandbox. So people who are in the development certificate won't get these because these are only going to, I mean, on your deployment certificate are only going to get the deployment ones, not this. So if I really want to get technical, I could come up with another way to do push or another whole PHP just for development. But for now, I just change it and test it. It's not an active deployment yet, so I'm just playing with it right now. This, I will admit, I did not write. I got it from another site, and I just modified it to allow the where clause, basically.
So Pete says, so it's a no-no to
As
link
long
to
as you
the
get
UID
approval,
to
you
the rest of
can.
their
So in
data,
other words, if you had a
right?
screen
From
from
who?
the
From
user,
who? From
but I'm
who
not sure
do
how
you
you
get
would,
approval?
because if you look at the way the little
Oh,
window comes up,
okay. So
when you call this up here, this whole UI application, register for remote, you've got this notified type badge, but I don't know if you can change it.
yeah, I guess they have their agreements,
Because you
right?
would want to say,
Yeah, they have
do you want to register for push notifications? We will be recording your email address as well. You want to be able to modify it, and I don't know how you do that. Unless all you have to do is have a screen that says, like a setup screen that says what information gets saved. It sounds very complex. That's why I don't bother. Um,
Yeah, Pete just wants to be careful not to be
no, and the
hunting
tough thing
people
about the
or
whole
be
privacy thing is
hunted.
people were getting all up in arms because they had no other thing to complain about. The truth is, you can turn it off. You can turn off push notifications just by going to your setup screen, your configuration screen.
Yeah, it would be nice if they had different levels of notification, like basic
Yeah,
or not
who knows?
anonymous,
Someday
but
maybe they
basic
will
or
allow different
advanced, you
classes
know?
of notification. Yeah, so you can put a priority level on it or something. But
Apple here, maybe they will. Yeah, I tell you, the syntax is kind of scary, but like you said, a lot of it is is done for you, right?
yeah, I'm just reading some of the comments here. The syntax, once you learn it, it's what it is a lot of things. Like for instance, I showed you the accelerometer thing. You would think interfacing with the hardware of the phone would take a ton of code, and it doesn't. It only takes a few lines of code, and you're accessing the accelerometer. So it's just a matter of getting used to the fact that you can do a lot with little.
So how do you want to spend your last 4 minutes here?
No, I think we
Or are we going to
did
go
well
for
here. I
another
think
half an
it's.
hour?
I want to I want to save stuff for next week because when we get into the actual deployment process, because you got to go through certain steps in order to actually upload to the site. Now I can even go through the iTunes Connect on how to create an instance of your app on there that tells it that it's waiting for upload and how to get things verified and everything. So it won't be as long as this unless there's more questions, but it will show you the next steps. Yeah,
So do you want to do a quick summary here
you need an Apple in order to do this. That's one of the key things. You need to be able to get, the development. To get your developer license, it's $99. So it's really not that bad. You pay a lot more for cheaper, or for lesser, I should say. Yeah, yeah. Um,
for tons of resources,
per
right?
year, yep. You need to have
And that's per year.
a business. It has to be an LLC or whatever. You can't just go in and say, I want a developer's license, and you're not a business. You need to have a tax ID number and everything. When you get into the iTunes Connect, the reason for that actually is because you're creating a business, you're going to be taking in funds. If you're not a business, you really, how are you going to do it? You can get a free one, I believe, or a $49 one, or I can't remember what it was, but it's a student one. You really can't sell anything on the App Store. Um, yeah, and I don't actually, the free one I don't think even allows you to
So
load
don't
onto the
bother, right?
phone because you can't get the certificates to deploy. You can't install it on your phone, so you can do the simulator. So it's great for a student who's just learning because they don't want to put it on a phone. But if you want to test on an actual phone, you have to spend the $99. Um,
Oh, Hemet said he
uh,
did it. He registered a personal one, but be useful for internal work for his company, though,
no,
like you're
yeah,
talking about.
there is
But
a
we're talking
personal one, but
about
it's limited.
serious, not just
It's not.
testing.
It
This is
doesn't
to
allow you to
get
do
stuff
something.
out there. How fast was it? How fast did it take to get this?
Well,
I
the
mean,
first
if
time
I
I did
signed
it,
up today
first I have
or
actually
right
two
after
developer
this, would
licenses.
I have it?
I have one for my company here, R&J Control, and I have another one for Berry Special Creations. The first time I did it, it took probably about 3 weeks. It's, yes, about 3 weeks to get. The second time I did it for Berry
Three
Special, it was
weeks.
done in like 3 days. So, yeah. No,
So it
it.
takes
Well, what
days.
it is you
It's not
create your
hours.
application, then you have to send them
Okay.
fax copies of your corporate documents. Um, Sometimes I can't remember if last time I had to actually do that or I just had to supply the tax ID number. No, actually, I think I did have to fax the. They give you a fax number. They say, send your information here or whatever, and with your corporate documents, and you're done. Within, yeah, like I said, I think it was like a day or two. It may have been done late in the day, and I had it 2 days later. It doesn't take long. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess if I did it Friday, I won't get it till mid
Um,
next week then.
Win
Okay.
Mobile, it's in its infancy. Remember that. This is the first year that they've done anything with iOS. I am certain they are going to do a lot more. Even in some of the menu things, some of the things they show, it's, like the iAd. Take that for example. That really isn't a lot of code. They can very easily make that their own class. They probably just haven't had a reason to. Um, so I'm excited to see what they do in the future. It does go down to the question, Arnold, you asked me, why do anything in WinMobile when you know Objective-C? That's a good question. It
Yeah.
allows, I feel WinMobile allows you to do a very quick proof of concept. If a customer says, can you do this? And I need to know in a week, you can do something in WinMobile to show them, yes, I can. What you can do then, if you know Objective-C, is say, you know what? I did this as a quick development to show you that I can. I would prefer to do it in Objective-C, which may take an extra, little extra time. Shouldn't take much extra, but it's going to be, a little more powerful. I'll have the ability to do a little bit more, but at least I was able to show you now that yes, this can be done, and it's going to look good. There's nothing stopping you doing a full development. I don't see. My locker thing. I'm going to keep it WinMobile. I got it all working. I just have to deal with the database. That delay is bothering me. I don't feel it should take that long to load only like 5 or 6 fields. in a couple records. It just doesn't seem right. That being said, I do want to deploy this soon, so I'm hoping I can fix it soon. So
Cool. So if there's no more questions, man, you've been going for a couple hours now,
there's
so
a lot of
that's
info.
fantastic.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is
And I'm
good. You've
glad you
seen the
saved some for
development
next
stage, and
week.
then once you're done, I'll go through the whole
Hey,
deployment process. It's not as long as this.
yeah, if you go to the Apple developer website, they have 3 words. One is develop,
Yep.
second one is test,
Yeah,
and
the,
the
the
third is
actual
distribute,
distribution is
right?
not hard. It's
So
it's basically just getting a
take a look at that.
distribution certificate and building the archive and doing all the verifications and submitting. And then you just have to sit and wait until they approve it. So next week's not going to be anywhere, shouldn't be anywhere as long as this, unless we need to review things and questions. Yeah, Hamet saying he did, his took 3 days.
Okay. So
When you go on the site to register, you'll see it. It gives you the 2 options, and you can choose which one you feel works best. So, but for you, Arnold, you're going to want to ultimately put this on the store and sell it to your customers. You're going to want them to be able to, the construction manager to be able to buy your app and manage his product, his accounts. So you're going to want to be able to deploy on a phone to test it or on an iPad, and so you may be limited if you don't go with the full version. Yeah.
well, there's no question about
Yep.
it. It's 99 is
Alrighty.
the word. So,
I haven't looked at
okay.
Skype. Is
If there's
anybody
no other
asking anything on
questions,
there?
see, I didn't look at Skype either. Whoa, I've been skipping that.
Dave, I think he has a point there. He said he thinks a big chunk of that 145 megs is hyperfile, and I do wonder too, because that's a big file, to download. And also, if that pushing that button is loading another whole section of the hyperfile system, that could be the delay. So that's a good point.
Oh,
Dave was asking about SQLite. Yes, you
bit too
can.
big.
And I may end up having to try to switch this over to SQLite. I don't know how easy that is to do in WinMobile. I've never had to. I'm sure it's doable. But,
So
oh yeah, I've been
you got
using
used to this
Parallels for years
parallels and
now.
stuff pretty
My
pretty
whole
easily,
other
huh?
application that I wrote on WebDev, I did on the Parallels machine. Yep.
Cool. Hey, I have a personal question. If I had to choose between a MacBook Pro or an iMac, a big 27-inch guy, if you had to do it over again, which
I
way would you
do.
go?
I carry.
I
Well, you know
guess you
what?
take yours
That is
everywhere, so
actually
you
a,
probably
a
need
good
it.
question. What would I do? I've got a Mac Pro, server sitting in the other room that I run. I've got 7 virtual machines running on that thing. I've got which screen am I on here? I use Parallels. Let's go back to this one. Have it here.
Because part of this whole thing is
Yeah, I
getting
don't have I don't
yourself
have it
your head into
I
the
don't have it
Mac
on here.
world now too. So I thought I'd ask that.
The Mac Mini, yeah,
Yeah, Glenn
it's
says the
portability.
Mac
It's
Mini is
whether
another
like I
alternative, but
develop, I'll be sitting
kind of
watching
want.
TV and I'll be sitting there working. Um, I I do have division of business here. I do R&J stuff here, and I do very special at home. So having the notebook, I actually have 2 personalities, 2 different setups on the Mac Pro. So I log out of R&J and I log in. That's where my 2 developer licenses are separated. So I like the laptop because I move around a lot. Power wise, the Mac Pros, and the iMacs are really good.
Mm-hmm.
But it's, like I said, portability. If you like to bounce around with it and do things in different locations, want to be able to sit out on your deck and program, then the Mac Pro is the thing to go with. But the other thought, though, is I have a pad, and I did actually develop a lot on the pad. I used I logged me in on the pad and logged into my laptop, and I had, or at the time I was doing swimming classes. My kids were going to swimming classes. I'd set my computer up instead of bringing it into the swimming pool area because I didn't want it exposed to that. I'd leave it home. I'd log me in through my pad, and I'd do all my development on the pad. So if I had, the big problem there is I can't do
No
Apple
way.
development that way because I need the phone to be able to load on there and test. But it's personal preference. I mean, I like if I was to get another one, I'd probably get a MacBook Pro. Um, Simply because I like the portability. Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Well, you only got 15 days to go then. So you got 15 days to pull your cash together.
Let's actually type.
Well, cool. Okay.
That's what I'm reading now.
What is David Farmer saying?
You could boot camp. Boot camp is a partition on your hard drive in which Windows is installed, and you basically are just running Windows on your piece on your Mac. You're not
Mm-hmm.
running your OS X thing. Yeah, you do
Dual.
boot. You do boot. The thing with that
Oh,
though
dual
is,
boots.
let's say you
Dual
do
boots,
something
you
in
mean?
Win Mobile, and then you want to test it on the Apple side. You've now got to
Oh,
like save it to a flash drive, shut down your computer, boot up your OS X, boot up Xcode, and go from there. So doing the parallels is nice because you just do that little shared directory back and forth, and you're done.
mm-hmm. And have you found that you run out of space, or do you have any
Get the
recommendation
biggest hard
on
drive you
making
can.
sure you got
I
enough
was
space? Is it
debating
fast
an
enough?
SSD and putting all my development stuff on an SSD, all my drive,
Mm-hmm.
all that stuff. Um, but I've been waiting to see what the new hardware is because supposedly the new hardware is going to have an SSD in it or an option for an SSD. So um, we'll see what happens there. But no, I've actually upgraded this hard drive. It came with I forget what I put in here, but I put a bigger hard drive in because I did need more space. But that was because I was running all my Xcode. I had a couple virtual machines on there, and then I had all of my WX stuff, and I even had Clarion.net running on one of the machines. So it was, I needed a lot of space, a lot of hard drive space, because I created a new virtual machine for the WX stuff. All three of them were on one machine, but Clarion was on its own machine. And then I have another machine for my hardware development stuff, my PC board development. So I had a lot of VMs sitting on my hard drive, and they just, they take up 100 and something gigs, 200 gigs, depending on the size each. So they can suck up a lot of space.
And do you plug in all three
Yeah,
dongles
I
into
have
that
my
machine?
little octopus thing here with all three. Right now, there's just one of them plugged in, but it's this thingy. I don't know if you can see it.
Okay.
Let's see. All right,
Did you
rewriting
read
an app.
Dave Harms's question here? He says he's rewriting an app in Objective C. What's the strongest case for staying in WM? Is it doing extensive database access? And how hard would you say it is to learn
Um,
Objective C
as
compared
for
to, say,
rewriting an
C
Objective
sharp?
C, um, the tough thing with WM right now and the database is that lag. If you're using Hyperfile, I have not. I should change this locker to SQLite. I should just get an SQLite install going and just see if there's any change in performance. It could literally be the size of the Hyperfile system is such that the phone is just, it just doesn't like it. Um, like I said, it's tough for me. I know Objective C, and I know fair enough of WM. The nice thing with WM is the fact that you can draw in your analysis, so all your stuff is already there. In most cases, if it's a win, you're rewriting the app into Objective C from what? Is it another WX product, or is it? Yeah, Dave.
Dave, what is it in that you have that? Got your audio up, Dave. So I mean, if you look at this, Dave, this is the way you write. Look how big these
There you go.
method calls are. I mean,
Can
you
you hear me?
love the.
Okay, thanks, Rob. This is really interesting. I guess the thing that sort of I'm asking about is you sort of made a comment
Uh-oh.
about the
Did I
option of
lose everybody?
rewriting an app in Objective C, for performance and for also maybe getting a little bit more flexibility, a little bit more power. So I guess the question that raised for me is why I'd be doing it in Windows Mobile in the first place, other than sort of the prototyping. And is the major problem? I mean, aside from having to learn Objective C, which is obviously going to be that's going to take some time for at least for anybody who doesn't have sort of already some existing background in a similar language. Um, but I guess I'm just wondering what the big advantage of Windows Mobile. And when I find you're talking about mobile applications, because the apps tend to be a whole lot smaller, a lot simpler. They're they lend themselves more to hand coding. So what is the event? If you had, let's assume for the sake of argument that you can get the performance to be really snappy on the database side. What's the big advantage of using Windows Mobile? Is it pulling in the
I think
analysis and
so.
being
I
able just to
think
have it
that,
crank out a whole
if you
bunch
want
of
to do
stuff for you?
something fast, that is, let's see, I'm trying to do two things at once here. That if you're trying to do something fast, because you got, your customers want, I want to do an Apple, here, this is what we can do. Um, the nice thing, it could be a stopgap, because say you're learning Objective C, and the customer really wants to offer something in the iOS world. You can do it in WinMobile pretty fast. It may be very basic, but it's a start, and that's what you say. Look, hey, we're just starting to do this. Let's learn and see what your customers want. So let's give them the basic functionality right now and see how the feedback is. If people come back saying, "Oh, this is slow," or "This is great," that is then your option to say, "Well, I did it in this language, but you know what? If we spend a little bit more money and go to the Objective C side, where it's all written in Objective C, we may find we get more functionality and stuff." And it's also a way for you to ease them in, because I'm not going to say you're going to need a lot more time to do an Objective C program, but being that you're just learning it, it's going to take a little while. It's, you're going to be, some of the time you're going to have to look at it and say, I really can't charge the customer for this because I'm learning this. But then again, your time is money, so you've got to find that balance.
You know, and you have quite a bit of experience now with Objective C. So as an experienced developer, how much longer would it take you to do something like this in
Um,
Objective C versus WinDev Mobile?
the added time is going to be in developing your screens, designing your screens. You have um, but even then, it doesn't take much long. You see, I didn't even touch on what's called the interface builder. I didn't even show the storyboard. Um, if you're developing an app in WinDev or WinMobile, your biggest benefit is the fact that if you have an application that's already out there, you can draw in your analysis all your data sets. If you've got, say, 500 objects, to have to re-enter those and recreate them in Objective-C is going to take time. Whereas with WinMobile, boom, it's right there. So that's where I find, for me, one of the big time savers are going to be. Like I said, I did this purple locker thing simply because I wanted to do something in WinMobile to do a webinar and say, hey, this is how it works, this is what it does, this is what you can do. If I wasn't going to do that, I would obviously have done it all in Objective-C. But I started in Objective-C, yes.
But you started in Objective-C. Yeah, and Dave, the maturity of WM is not like, if you go to Xcode and that interface builder and look at that wireframing,
I'm
oh
bouncing
my
back
goodness.
over. Okay, first
thing
off,
is
as for the
rich.
learning thing, okay,
Yeah.
there is a website out there. I know there's Lydia or Linda, whatever it's called, but lynda.com. But there's also this. It's mycodeteacher.com.
Lynda.com.
It's like $10 a month. The guy who did all these lessons I've talked to, I haven't met face to face, but he's a great guy. His name is Anthony, and he's very good at teaching. And there's all the basic stuff is here. Everything you would pretty much need to know is in here. You want to learn how to do, let's see here, a table view, UI table views. This is the loopers. All right, service unavailable. I don't know why. Maybe because I'm doing this over the web thing. But he assumes you know how to program, but he assumes you don't know how to necessarily program an Objective-C. So when he shows the stuff, he's very descriptive as to, okay, this is why. And I learned a ton on this. I've watched pretty much every one of these videos, and it's great. Like, for instance, when I wanted to learn how to do push notifications, it's in here somewhere. There we go, push. Okay. And down here, this file, this zip file, is where I got the PHP code. Like I said, I'm not claiming that I wrote it all. I made the modifications, but I got the PHP code and the instructions. You have to create a special key that has to go on your server that tells, it's called ck.pem file. That is your certificates and your keys combined together into one file. So that way the push notifications knows that you're authorized to actually send pushes. He goes through every step of the way on how to do this. So if you really want to learn, this is a fantastic site. And here they have new stuff on iPad. Here they're dealing with more of the Xcode 4.2, the storyboard that he was talking about. All right, when they first started, it was called the Interface Builder, and they still have Interface Builder, but now it's called, you can do things called storyboarding, and it allows you to lay out your application beautifully. Let me find it. All right, let me. Zoom out. Get rid of this. All right. This is my whole restaurant app. In one big picture. Now, the confusing thing that comes up here is, all right, first off, let me just go, like, this is your navigation, your main control. That's where it has all the menu items. This links to that, that links to that, and this calls this when you hit your table. This is not an application developer. In other words, drawing all these screens. Here's my, for the beers, all the information, all the outlets. This is where you define your outlets. I showed you earlier there was a thing called an IB outlet of the type, say, UI text. This is or UI label, I mean. This is a UI label. This is a UI text view. These are all laid out in here, in this area here. This has all the different objects that you can put in here. Switches and all sorts. There's the banner if you wanted IAD. Different motions. All this stuff you then reference in your code. So if I go to the beer, I got beer on my brain here. Save. Beer detail, okay. Here I create all my outlets. So all those labels that you saw in the storyboard are referenced here. Because they're labeled as an outlet, they are going to go to the interface builder. They're going to go to the IB outlet. You then set the properties. This is all declaring things to say, okay, you're going to use this. If you notice, these strings up here are all internal. And they're listed here. So this is all setting up. This is basically the properties is saying I need a setter and a getter for every single one of these items. And then when I finally come over here, I synthesize them. Synthesizing basically says, okay, we are now in a position where we are going to use these objects, setters and getters, which are automatically managed, and it's done. And then you can reference them wherever you want in this, like right here, beer name. Now, beer name, which was an IB outlet, if you notice here, I have to put the name in, I have to reference the text object in the object. You can do all sorts of things. There's all different, things that you can color and font size and all that. It's all dot notation. But when you're dealing with the storyboard or the interface builder, you are literally drawing a picture of what you want your app to look like. There's no code generated with this. All it's creating is the outlets or the inlets. If you had I don't have anything where you have to enter data, but here's my Facebook button. That's just an IB button that does the Facebook. And then here. So linked to that button is this action here. Go back here. You see this? I declared it here. I use it here. Now, this add this SDK. It's something I downloaded off the web, and it is it's a third-party SDK that makes it very easy to add Facebook support on your app. So I add this, I import it in here, I reference it down here, and all of a sudden, I got Facebook. As soon as somebody clicks that button, if they're not already logged into Facebook, it'll give the login screen to log into Facebook, and then this information here, the title, the shared description, and the extended description, as well as the image of the meal, the dish, will be sent to Facebook. And you can do it with Twitter too. I just don't do it. There's a couple services you can use to add this SDK. You just add this SDK on the web, and it'll show you how. And there's also all kinds of analytics that you can get with it too, on who's clicking or who's doing this, that, and the other thing. But this site here is very good.
Oh, this is a second call for 4 minutes.
I'm surprised everybody's still on here.
Well, this is pretty interesting stuff, and there's a lot to get your head around. So it's handy to have somebody give us the lay of the land that we
Like I
can
said, there's
go over and
so many
over and
different
over
things that
again
can be talked
until
about.
we get a good feel for it.
It's it comes down to your comfort level as a programmer, and if you're willing to start learning a new language. So I think we're at an ending point.
There you go.
All right.
Yeah. I'm going to stop the recording right now. Thank you.
Yep.
Everybody have a great weekend,
Not
and
as long next week. It shouldn't
come
be next
back
week.
next week
Yeah.
for more. Bring your questions.
Okay.
Bring